It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio. This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us from the Allen County Right to Life, iChooseLife.org, is Abigail Lorenzen. Thanks for being here, Abigail.
Hi, good morning.
So much going on in the pro-life movement right now. A lot of heated discussions happening online. Kind of want to talk about how we respond to that. First of all, it just seems like, I think there's a lot of confusion about what's going on. Kind of everybody spouting off their versions of the different laws and stuff. Can you give us a little summary of what's happening in the United States right now with regards to abortion and potentially Supreme Court decisions down the road?
Sure. So the pro-life movement has for a long time been waiting for an opportunity to overturn Roe. I should say the whole thing. To overturn Roe v. Wade, which is a 1973 Supreme Court decision that legalized abortion in the U.S., so all 50 states in all 3 trimesters. That's a big deal. So in the overall vision of the pro-life movement, if we overturn Roe v. Wade, then the abortion laws, that power gets kicked back to the states. Then it's up to each state to put together the laws and the regulations and the limits surrounding the abortion issue.
Right.
So for a long time, the pro-life movement has been saying, okay, when can we overturn Roe v. Wade? And now that we have 5 justices on the Supreme Court that could possibly lean pro-life, this is looking pretty good. So what you see is this flurry of states passing pro-life laws, or known from the other side as abortion bans, hoping that those will either pass and sit and go into effect in their state, or that if they are appealed, they are appealed all the way up to the Supreme Court. And then the Supreme Court could use that to overturn Roe v. Wade. Some states you don't see doing any abortion bans like that, the big sweeping legislation. Indiana's one of those. We're not doing a big sweeping legislation at the moment. And it's not because those states are less pro-life than states like Alabama. It's that we're going for a different strategy.
Okay.
So a full overturn is one strategy, but the current justice who presides over the Supreme Court, that's Justice Roberts Jr., he tends towards something called incrementalism. So in states like Indiana, we have these bills that we're passing that chip away at abortion laws, hoping that incrementalists like Justice Roberts will take those and say, okay, we'll chip away at this piece of Roe because we have some insight that says he's probably not going to overturn it and do this big triumphant, woohoo, we're done with this kind of thing. It's more likely that he'll slowly shift the jurisprudence as opposed to just overturning. So some states are sending up the big bans, and that's great. And some states are sending up the little chipping away at these different things. So for instance, Indiana right now has an appeal in front of the Supreme Court. It's been relisted 15 times, which means they're still thinking about taking it.
Okay.
And it's our discrimination bill from, I think, 2 years ago now that says you can't kill a baby just because they are disabled or a certain sex or a certain race.
I see, right.
So it would be tied into the discrimination codes, actually, as opposed to tied into the abortion codes. But protect a lot of children and begin to turn the culture to thinking, wait a second, if I can't kill a baby simply because they're disabled, why can't I kill a healthy baby?
Right.
And so start to turn the tide that way as well. So you've got different strategies going on in the U.S., but we need all of them to be able to accomplish what we want to do.
Is there any overarching, somebody that's coordinating this movement and saying, all right, what we need is first for this state to do this and then this? Or is it just kind of individual states doing their own thing independently?
Yeah, there's an overarching director, and his name is God. Other than that, you set it up really well. There are certain organizations who try to give us that, who take a look at the political landscape and at the different states' legislations and at the governors and the majorities and that kind of thing, and then put together sort of guides. So they put together sample legislation, and then they set recommendations for each state and say, okay, for this state where you're sitting right now and who your legislators are right now, we would suggest that you do this.
Right.
This could be the most opportune way to get things done in your state. But just like with every individual person, with every organization, you get different strategies. And really in the pro-life movement, we don't have the luxury of saying, no, we're only going to try this one strategy. We have to try them all.
Yeah.
we've got to be working on every single front.
Anything before we get into some of these responses that we need to have in our back pocket? Anything that we should know about these different state laws that are getting passed that maybe is misinformation that we might be hearing in the news, or things that we might look good or actually bad, might look bad or actually good?
Yeah, the biggest thing is when it comes down to that strategy. So it's what strategy are you going to try to use? Are you going to go for sort of this abolish abortion piece where you do like Alabama and put in a full sweep? Or are you going to try to knock down laws one by one, which sometimes happens faster because you have less resistance from the other side? So there's, unfortunately, because we're human and we have fallen human nature, pro-lifers tend to attack each other when we don't like each other's strategies, and we really need to work on that. So that's, I mean, there's always going to be misinformation out there. I'd suggest people, I pulled a summary table of these laws off of Wikipedia. And on this particular article, I think they did a pretty good job of being fair. So there's definitely ways to get that information and to get accurate information. And I'd suggest that our listeners do that if this is something they're having conversations with people about, so that they do know what's going on and they're not repeating things that they hear but that maybe aren't accurate. But my biggest plea for the pro-life community is don't attack each other. Take a look at what each other are doing and say, oh, that looks good, but I'm going to try this over here. And, you know, we just like the body of Christ, we all have talents. We all are going to think about this issue and the best way to do it slightly differently. And we need to support each other in that because we're all working towards the same end.
Right. We're talking with Abigail Lorenzen from the Allen County Right to Life, and talking about arguing and fighting. There's so much going on, especially social media, the news.
It's brutal.
It's constant attacking. And I think we might see friends, family, celebrities, whatever, posting things upset about these quote unquote abortion bans, these pro-life legislation, and not know exactly how to respond. And, you know, maybe social media isn't the best place to have these debates and conversations. But if the opportunity happens where you have a chance to defend, we should be ready for that. So I wonder if we could just run through a couple of them that I've been seeing a lot lately. One, for example, keeps on getting attacked, I keep seeing, and part of it's just for comedy's sake, and I can appreciate a well-written joke and not agree with the premise, but it's a bunch of old white men telling women what they can and cannot do with their bodies. How do we respond to that?
That's a fantastic one on multiple levels. The first thing is that lately, it's been used a lot talking about these big sweeping abortion bans and referring to these legislatures that are mostly white men. Well, the Alabama law that just got signed, that was a female governor who signed that. So it's not all white men. But then on the flip side, take a look at who handed down Roe v. Wade. That was all white men. So to say that they could have an opinion back in 1973, but can't have an opinion now, you start to see the logical fallacy in that. It's not about whether or not men can have an opinion. It's about whether or not that opinion matches up with the abortion agenda. But taking it down to a lower level and a more basic level, the abortion issue is not about opinions. It's about morally right and morally wrong. And it doesn't matter how you feel about abortion. Killing an innocent human being is wrong. And so it doesn't matter what gender you are, or what color you are, or what political affiliation you are. Killing an innocent human being is wrong, and it's always wrong. And so it doesn't matter who says that truth. Truth is truth no matter who says it. So it, you know, if somebody's trying to shut you down, Kyle, as a man and a white man, you know, you just whisper whatever you're saying to the woman next to you and have her say it because it's still valid.
If a white man said that racism was wrong, you wouldn't say he has no right to say that because he's white.
He's white, right?
Truth is truth. All right. Well, what about the concept that pro-lifers only care about the fetus until it's born and then they don't care at all?
So I think what they're picking up on here is that pro-life organizations try as much as possible to stay focused on beginning of life issues. And there's a good reason for that. If, for instance, Allen County Right to Life tried to focus on adoption agencies in the area and focus on helping the foster care system in the area and focus on the WIC program and focus on food stamps and help all of those different things, how effective do you think we'd be at tackling the abortion issue? You're not going to be. You need to stay focused. There are other organizations that focus on those other things, and that's good. And we applaud those people. But if we try to stretch ourselves to all of those things, we're not going to get anything done with the actual abortion issue. And I mean, that is just a slam of the people. If you ask any pro-life people, they're going to say, yeah, this person's a human and that's why they're valuable. Well, that's still true when they're outside of the womb. They're still a human and they're still valuable. So like I mentioned before, the body of Christ, we all have different passions and interests.
Right.
And so we're going to be looking at different areas. There are people who are very, very passionate about adoption and about welfare and about all of these different issues that play into human well-being. And that's good. If we all focus on one thing, though, we're not going to get the rest of everything else done.
Sure. What about and this is, I think, even debated among people that would consider themselves pro-life, is the exemptions for rape and incest.
Yeah.
And we see this even among pro-life politicians saying that there should be that exemption in there.
Right.
How would you respond to that?
Well, and President Trump just put out a tweet the other day. So this, we have to go back to the very basis of the whole abortion argument. And that is, what is the preborn? If the preborn is human, then there's no justification for abortion. If the preborn isn't human, then there's no justification needed. So the preborn is human. They have human DNA. You are complete and whole from the time you're a single cell. You're self-driven, right? That's not mom telling you to grow fingernails. That's your own DNA and, of course, God. And so you're a human being. You have value. That doesn't change depending on how you're conceived.
Right.
So the question is not how you're conceived, but that you were conceived. You're still a human being. So even people who are conceived in rape should be valued the same because they're equal to the rest of us. They should be protected the same as well. For people who are concerned about the well-being of women, good. We should be. We should be. And so we should be prosecuting rapists.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean we give the death penalty to the child who had nothing to do with anything. Right. They're also a victim. And also the statistics about women's health after a rape and then women's health after an abortion, you see things like mental health decline, suicide rates go up, substance abuse goes up. Risky behavior in general goes up. You combine those two events, a rape and then an abortion, and all of those negative effects skyrocket.
Right.
Why would we want to do that to women?
But we pretend like we can just make it go away.
Right. And you can't. You cannot erase a person.
You bring that up. One of the arguments is that one of these laws, at least, would put, I think, up to a 99-year sentence for somebody who provides an abortion.
Yes.
Not to punish the woman asking for an abortion, but the abortionist, saying that he or she would now face more jail time than a rapist would. And
that's appropriate because the rapist has not killed anyone. They've done something heinous and it's awful and they should be punished. But murder is worse than rape. Right? And we agree with that every other time in law. And so that should be true as well for abortion.
Yeah. All right. Well, so many more things that actually people should just go to your boot camp.
Yeah, we have
more stuff like this.
Life Defenders training during the summer for high school and college students, and a Life Defenders workshop every fall for adults.
All right. Well, where can people go to find more information about what you're doing and also keep up with the latest news that's coming out about the pro-life movement here in the area?
iChooseLife.org. That's
thanks,
us.
Abigail.
Thanks, Kyle.
This is Kyle Hyman here with Andrea Serrani. We've been having a kind of a pro-life morning this morning. We're talking about some of the different pro-life issues and going to talk a little bit about some of the legislation that has come out recently. Just give you a little summary and update. But I feel like all of these laws that are coming out, sometimes it gets confusing, partially because our news tends to have an angle.
Yeah, I definitely was getting more and more frustrated this morning as I was sort of just trying to do some research about these laws, that every single article was talking about the anti-abortion. They won't say pro-life.
Right.
They always throw in this line about when we're talking about heartbeat bills. They never just say restricted to when a fetal heartbeat is detectable. It always says restricted to when a fetal heartbeat is detectable, which is before many women even know they're pregnant. And I just want to like punch a wall or something, because there's like a whole rant I can do about why women don't know they're pregnant at 6 weeks, because the abortion industry and Planned Parenthood and contraception has lied to them for years about when they can find out they're pregnant. Anyway, it's just really frustrating, and it can kind of keep me even from looking at the news sometimes, because it's just always this skewed perspective. They are always sort of summarizing things in this negative way, making it look like these are just like inhumane, ridiculous laws, when really they're the most humane laws there could be, right?
The definition of a humane law.
But I do think that it's good for us to keep track of what's going on, where, and I have a little update about what's going on with laws in our own state too.
Sure.
So the year started with a few laws, a big splash, especially from New York State and some other states trying to expand abortion protections. So protections for people having abortion. So these would be pro-abortion laws. On January 22nd, the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, of course, Governor Cuomo in New York State signed a law that codified Roe versus Wade into their state law, which would allow abortions to remain legal even if the court decision is overturned. So sort of as the sequence of events goes, Justice Gorsuch was confirmed to the Supreme Court in 2017, and then Justice Kavanaugh was confirmed to the Supreme Court in 2018, which sort of made it look like now there's a conservative majority on the Supreme Court, which, in case you weren't paying attention to the news then, made pro-abortion people literally freak out. So then some of these more liberal states started being concerned about what would happen if Roe versus Wade did get overturned, which, by the way, if Roe versus Wade does get overturned, it doesn't make abortion illegal in and of itself.
Right.
It would make it a state issue again. So there would no longer be a nationally protected right to abortion, but each state would get to decide. So that's what states are basically doing right now, is they're saying, okay, well, if this happens, what will it look like in our state?
Right.
So states like New York are trying to make it so that for sure abortion would stay legal in their state. Or Virginia tried to do the same thing. It didn't really go anywhere. Vermont has passed the same kind of law in their state. It would have to be passed again and then voted for separately by the people of the state, but it has been passed one time. But many, many, many more states are passing pro-life laws.
Which is interesting.
Which is really interesting. So the news recently has mostly been about states passing strong restrictions, including 6 states just in this year, just in 2019, which have passed heartbeat bills: Kentucky, Mississippi, Ohio, Georgia, Alabama, and Missouri.
6 of them have passed.
They've
the
passed.
heartbeat bills.
Yeah. And been signed by their governors. Well, Missouri's hasn't been signed by their governor yet because it just passed late last week, but he's said he'll sign it. Kentucky's already has been halted by courts, so it's not going to go into effect. And the abortion proponents have promised to challenge all the others. So it will be interesting to see if any of these are actually allowed to go into effect. But it's interesting to see that just in 4.5 months, right, we've had so many of these laws passed and approved. There are other states with pending heartbeat bills, including Louisiana, where, and this is where it gets even more interesting, their Democrat governor has said he'll sign it if it gets passed.
Really?
Yeah. So he said he would break with the Democrat platform, which is pro-abortion anytime, all the time. He said that if that's what the people of his state want, then he agrees and he'll sign it into law. So these heartbeat bills have various levels of restrictions included with them, but a basic heartbeat bill is going to restrict abortion to any time after a heartbeat can be detected. So that's a summary of where those have been. Meanwhile, there are 2 Indiana laws that have been challenged by courts and gotten all the way to the Supreme Court now. So one of those Indiana laws requires fetal remains to be buried or cremated, and it bans abortions performed because of disability, sex, race, the race of the baby. And then the other law would require women to undergo an ultrasound examination at least 18 hours before their abortion is scheduled. Both of these laws were signed by Governor Pence back in 2016, but they haven't been in effect because of these court challenges. So if that gives you some perspective of how long these things can take, right? That's 2 whole years that we've been sort of waiting and hoping for these laws finally to go into
effect. This is what
effect.
Abigail was talking about, chipping away at versus trying to overturn in a large
so
way.
We could hear from the Supreme Court anytime about whether or not they're actually going to hear this case. They have not made any announcement yet. They haven't said, no, we're not hearing it, but they also haven't said, yeah, we're going to pick it up and put it on our docket for the fall. Those are usually announced on Mondays, by the way, if you want to keep an eye out for that. There's one other sort of caveat I want to make about while these conversations are happening is to be careful about the way that you read statistics about people's opinions on abortions. So you'll hear a lot of varying things about, the majority of Americans want abortion to be legal, but there's this growing trend toward pro-life. 2/3 want it to be illegal after 20 weeks, all of these things. It really depends on the way the question is framed.
Exactly. Yep.
Really, really, really depends. So just be careful about how people say those things to you if they're pro-abortion and they're like, well, everyone wants it to be legal.
Right.
Just say, well, I'm not sure we can trust those because it's true.
Yeah. This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us from the St. Joseph County Right to Life is Jackie Appleman. Thanks for being here, Jackie.
Hi, thanks for having me, Kyle.
It's a pleasure to have you. You put out this really great resource. It's a short PDF with some suggestions on what people can do to help women. And it's a response to an article that was put out, what you can do to help women in states with extreme abortion. First of all, before you talk about your suggestions, what kind of suggestions were they offering in this article that you were responding to?
Yeah, so I saw the headline, what can you do to help women in states with extreme abortion bans? And that headline really pulled me, and so I was intrigued to see what they would be saying to, how to offer help to women.
Yeah.
And it was very disappointing. And according to the article, the only way to help women is not to actually engage directly with the women, but to help the abortion providers. So all of their suggestions were give money to an abortion clinic, volunteer at an abortion clinic, speak out in favor of abortion. And that was it. So they weren't even solutions to help women, but just solutions to help the abortion industry continue to make money. So I was really disappointed to see that. And it frustrated me. I was like, no, there's ways to actually help women. And so that's what prompted me to write a response to that.
And I think it's ironic because that is exactly what the pro-life movement gets accused of, is we're not actually trying to help women. But that is so contrary to every pro-life person that I've ever met that is so dedicated to helping pregnant mothers. And we have so many resources to do that. And I think your response to that points out a bunch of these in ways that we can be pro-life, not just in politics, but in our actions and with our free time and actually giving up some of our maybe other time to dedicate to this. So can you share just some of the resources that you would suggest that people get involved with and support to help anybody that's dealing with a crisis pregnancy?
Yeah. So, there's tons of real and practical ways to help women. And no matter what your situation is, no matter how much money you have to give or not give, how much time you do or don't have, there's always something big or small that we can do. And every little bit helps. And I think the biggest thing that people can do, and one of the most effective things, is to know about the resources that are available in your local community. Because there's already tons of wonderful resources, both nationally and locally, that are offering real services for women and for mothers and families and children. So learning about who they are and what they do and keeping that contact info on you and sharing that with others. So if you, run into a friend or somebody at church or things like that who are discussing a situation where they need help, for you to have that knowledge on what's available for them and being able to share that is really helpful. I found a website, it's a national website called helpinyourarea.com that lists pregnancy resource centers all across the nation. And then we also have, for the kind of South Bend, Mishawaka, Southern Michigan area, that kind of Michiana area, we've got a bunch of resources listed on hermichiana.com. And there's over 200 local resources listed on there. And then you can also check out the Fort Wayne, Dowling County, and St. Joe County Right to Life we have resources listed on our websites as well. So tons of ways to learn what's happening in your area.
And as far as these pregnancy centers that we're looking for to support and volunteer, maybe financially support as well, what kind of things should we be looking for to know that it's a pro-life pregnancy center versus something that might be abortion-minded?
The easiest way to find out is you can call them and ask them if they do abortion referrals.
Okay.
And so if they're abortion-minded, they will do referrals. Any pro-life organization will not refer to an abortion clinic. And I am not aware of any abortion-minded clinics that are offering help to women in the Fort Wayne, South Bend Diocese area. So Women's Care Center is a great local resource that is pro-life. And, so they, are always taking financial donations and donations of materials, clothes, diapers, formula, that kind of thing as well.
And your second point that you have in your PDF is about aiding pregnant women and single parents without judgment. And so you have a whole list of ideas, which I think are really good. Before we get to those ideas, what do you mean by aiding them without judgment, and why is that important?
I think there has been a lot of stigma around single parents and, women who get pregnant out of wedlock or find themselves in a unplanned pregnancy. And there can be times where we're more judgmental of, well, you should have kept your legs crossed, or, why weren't you responsible? Why didn't you wait till you're married? That kind of thing. And when you're in, it's just not very helpful, or loving. And, what women, at that point, they just need to be loved and they need to be supported. We've all made mistakes. They're not any different, than anybody else. And we're all in this together. Even married couples with kids need help. I'm sure anybody who has a kid understands that, it takes a village to raise these kids, whether that's your friends, the people at church, the teachers, all these people that are engaging with you and your kids. Everybody could use some support. That second suggestion to help people, I'm not even saying to go out and find strangers who are needy. If we all just engaged in the lives of the people around us, our family, our friends, our coworkers, our church members, anybody, if everybody truly engaged and helped in the messiness of those around us, everybody would be supported, including you. And so it's amazing just how little time and effort it takes actually to make somebody feel supported. A friend who has a couple kids, had a medical procedure, just got a surgery, bringing her a meal, babysitting for a friend's, their kids for free one night. Doesn't take a lot, but it does take something. And I think if we were all there for each other, it'd make a big impact.
Sure.
I was reading a statistic that said the majority of the people who went to have an abortion did not have a single person who said that, hey, I will help you, or I am here for you, or you don't have to do this because you're not alone.
Right.
If there was just a single person who had told them, you are not alone, it would have offered them the support to change their mind.
Yeah.
And so with 1 in 4 people, women having an abortion, we all know somebody who's in that unplanned pregnancy situation and dealing with those decisions. So
we're talking with Jackie Appleman, the executive director at St. Joseph County Right to Life. Check out the blog that she posted over at prolifemichiana.org, giving ideas. And can you go through some of the practical things that we can do to support not just single parents, but somebody that might be in a difficult situation with a pregnancy or a young child?
Sure. Some of the suggestions I gave are babysit free of charge, make a meal for a new mom, or take a mom and her family out to dinner, volunteer at a local pro-life pregnancy resource center, consider adoption, become a respite care home for foster parents, help or encourage a parent struggling with a kid at the store, restaurant, and church. I think we've all seen a parent struggling with one or more kids. So just offering an encouraging smile or distracting a kid, I'm sure that'd be very helpful. Incorporate giving into your routine. So when you shop for the family, pick up one extra item and donate it to a mom or a local food pantry or pregnancy resource center. Be a safe place. So be somebody who is open that people feel comfortable coming to you in a crisis, and that people can reach out. Donate money or items to a local pregnancy resource center, or you can initiate a fundraiser at your school or church for a pro-life nonprofit or for a family.
And these are so great, but also you have your third point is to advocate politically, and not just, I think this is really important, it's not just politically for pro-life in the sense of anti-abortion things, but you extend this to a whole myriad of things. Can you share some of those?
Yeah. So the thought behind this was, I was envisioning, what does a post-Roe v. Wade world or country look like? What kind of other social justice issues or advocacy issues will we need to have on our mind and educate ourselves about? So these are just some things to consider learning more about. Start educating yourself on what the issue is, researching candidates' positions, that kind of thing. So some of those things were protections at work for pregnant women and mothers, increased penalties for domestic violence, an overhaul of the foster and adoption system, support for childcare, so those kinds of things.
And I know so many people are already doing these things, and it's, I think, important that we share that this is an important part of the pro-life movement, is helping not just women to have babies, but also being able to raise children and providing options. And so many, this is so important. Also, you have some suggestions on things to do at work. Can you share some of those?
Yeah. So if you're a business owner or a manager and you have control over some of those policies at work, so you have the power and the responsibility to foster a pro-life work environment to support mothers and just parents in general. So some of those suggestions are pay a living wage, offer paid paternity leave, provide a room for a mom that is breastfeeding to be able to pump in private and comfort, not just in a closet. Be flexible with parents that need to stay home with a sick child or pregnant mother with morning sickness, and offer time off for domestic violence victims.
Yeah, such a great post. And I think these are actual practical things that are going to help women instead of just financing abortions. And so I hope people take a look at this and read it. Where can people find the article?
Yeah, they can find it on our website at prolifemichiana.org.
And what else do you have going on with the Right to Life in St. Joseph County?
Oh, we're getting ready for the 4-H fair this year. So if people want to come out and volunteer and be able to talk with people one-on-one about what's happening in the pro-life movement, they can sign up to do that. There's still that threat of abortion clinic opening up. So we're doing continuous sidewalk counseling training and training for prayer warriors. So if you're feeling called to be out in front of the clinic to be able to offer support for those women or to pray for them, we're offering training for that. And all that information can also be found on our website at prolifemichiana.org.
All right. And we'll make sure I have a link to that and to this article as well in the show notes. So thank you so much, Jackie, for joining us. And thanks for all the good work that you're doing for the pro-life movement and everybody in the St. Joseph County Right to Life. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, Kyle.